We're fearlessly talking about the biggest stories that matter to you the most. Breaking news, John Calipari is finalizing a 5-year deal to become the Arkansas Razorbacks' next head coach, covering college sports like no one else. The biggest guests in sports. We now welcome in Hall of Famer Jim Calhoun.
Such a pride I had, I came to Connecticut.
The legend, Tim Tebow, joins us.
We'll run it back. I like it.
The legend, Herschel Walker. Welcome in, everybody, to a little bit of a bonus Monday night edition of the Aaron Torres Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Torres. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's having a great day. We're going to do something a little bit different today. Tuesday, Wednesday, we'll get back to normal episodes of the Aaron Torres Pod. But here's the deal. If you follow college sports, you know that Monday is traditionally a pretty quiet day. We react to everything that happened on Saturday and Sunday. And then there's a little bit of a lull here in the beginning of the week. And so what I decided to do, we'll try it this week. We'll see if it pops. We'll see if you guys and girls like it. By the way, drop your comments in the comment section. What we're going to do is that on Saturday night, so college hoops is underway. League play is going on. It's awesome. And the story of college basketball, I believe right now, is the state of the SEC. Joe Lunardi's most recent bracketology last Friday had 13 SEC teams in. Texas was the first team out, so 14 teams vying for spots. And I just bring it up because after the games went final last week with Auburn, Tennessee, Kentucky, Alabama winning, I put out a little tweet where I said, if the season ended today, this is my SEC top 5 after 2 weeks in the season. And so what I realized was that would actually make a pretty good piece of YouTube content. And so what we are doing tonight is I am dropping my first ever SEC basketball power rankings now after 2 weeks of college basketball, 2 weeks of SEC play. And man, oh man, are there a lot of good teams to get to. We're going to talk Auburn, Alabama, Kentucky, Florida, Tennessee, on and on. I'm going to give you my basketball power rankings. I want you in the comment section to tell me what's right, what's wrong, all of that. And I think it'll be fun, and I think this is a thing that we could potentially do every Monday going forward. Before we get started, obviously, look, there's all the reminders. Make sure you're subscribed, Apple, Spotify. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube. But there's a little bit of a special announcement today, and we'll be continuing this announcement, and I will make this official announcement on social media here coming up. But if you're watching this show, if you're listening on podcast, you're going to be the first ones to hear this. We're doing something a little bit different here on the Aaron Torres Pod, and I am part of a fundraiser that I do want to tell you a little bit about, okay? So I know many of you tell me, by the way, it's supposed to be fun, so we're going to have fun, I promise, okay? But I think many of you know, I do live in Southern California. I do live in Pasadena. The last couple weeks have been not very fun in the city of Pasadena. Now, I am very thankful. I am fine. My family is fine. My in-laws live in the next town over. They are fine. But there are a lot of people that unfortunately are not in the shape that I am and not in the shape that my family is in. And there aren't just people that are struggling right now. There are actually animals that are struggling as well. I live about a half a mile from the Pasadena Humane Society. I walked down there today. Spirits were high. I give credit to everybody working there. They're busting their butts. But if you've read any reports, you know that hundreds of animals over the last couple weeks have been dropped, or last couple days, really. The fire started last Tuesday. Hundreds of animals have been dropped off on their doorsteps. Now, I spoke with somebody there named Alyssa. So, by the way, if the Pasadena Humane Society sees this, says, who is this guy? I spoke with Alyssa on Monday morning. And she said the good news is there was a lot of volunteers. They are getting physical packages of food and things of that nature, but financially they are struggling. And financially, there are not only an overwhelming number of animals, but more importantly, and this is pretty sad, a lot of animals that need medical care because of the fires. And I don't want to be too graphic, but burns and things of that nature. And so Aaron Torres, the Aaron Torres Pod, we are partnering with the Pasadena Humane Society, and we have started a GoFundMe for the Pasadena Humane Society. This is with the Humane Society. We are working directly with them. Again, Alyssa is my representative there. And if you could be so kind as to donate any dollar amount, I don't care if it's $2, $5, $10. I know budgets are tight. If you could donate any amount of money, it would go so far for these animals that need it. I promise you, 100% of all money donated is going directly to the animals. I get nothing out of this. The Humane Society, the people there are working. They just need medical supplies, more food, more water for all of these animals that are now on the premises. So producer Matt has gone ahead and thrown the link in the show description on YouTube. I will also have it on my social medias here at about 8 o'clock Eastern time on Monday night. But if you could do me a favor, if you have any change to spare, and I would never ask you for money, but this to me is something that's very important, and it is very much in need. If you have any thing that you can contribute, that you can donate, we really would appreciate it. The Pasadena Humane Society needs your support, needs your help. And again, I would just, anything that you can do would really help. But again, we are working with the Pasadena Humane Society. I will give details on my social media, my Twitter, my Instagram, etc. But if you could help at all, it would be appreciated. Again, the link is in YouTube. And again, by the way, I'll have the link other places as well. And again, all of the money raised will 100% go to animals that absolutely need it. All right, so that was a little bit serious. Do want to have some fun here because, listen, it's that time of year. We're down to one college football game. The NFL has, 8 teams left in their playoffs. So we're starting to get to that time of year. It is college basketball season. And I think more importantly than just college basketball season, there is a prevailing story in the sport of college basketball right now. And it is that the SEC is absolutely steamrolling everybody. Okay. So I just said it a moment ago, but Joe Lunardi's most recent bracketology on Friday. Now, another one comes out Tuesday. I have a feeling Arkansas might be out of the bracketology. But his most recent bracketology had 13 SEC teams in, Texas as the first team out. So essentially 14 teams in that NCAA tournament picture. And so I've seen a lot of debates on social media, a lot of arguments, a lot of fighting. Who's actually the best team in the SEC? Figure, what the heck? Let's go ahead and have a conversation. Let's go ahead and do what we need to do. Let's do our first ever SEC basketball power ranking. And I think as the season goes on, this will not be a one-time thing because I think there's going to be a lot of fun debates, arguments, etc. And to be clear, this is my personal opinion, but it is based on what I have seen. It's not solely based on win-loss record, because if you just wanted that, you could go to the conference rankings, you could go to the standings. And to me, we got to talk about how good teams are, who they've played, who they haven't. So let's go ahead and dive in. Let's start at number one. And I don't really feel like this should be controversial, but I think it might be. Number one to me in the SEC Power Rankings right now on January 13th is the number one team in the AP poll, producer Matt's Auburn Tigers, okay? So listen, I think there's going to be some controversy here because Janai Broome is obviously out for a period of time. He suffered a very extreme ankle injury just Saturday afternoon in the win over South Carolina. They struggled to put away South Carolina. I think there's a lot of people that would sit there and say, well, how can you have him number one when the best player maybe in college basketball is out for the foreseeable future? Well, first of all, it's based on right now. I think it's also worth noting, by the way, that as of right now, the timetable kind of keeps shrinking. I think we fear at the beginning, could he be out for the year? Then we found out there was no surgery needed. Now, all of a sudden, you look at Auburn's schedule. Listen, they're not going to rush anybody back. But it's kind of worth noting, Auburn this week, they play Mississippi State at home on Tuesday night. Then they play Georgia on the road. Then they get a week off before they host Tennessee. So just one game, today's the 13th, 3 games between now and January 29th. By the way, the 29th, they play at LSU, which might be the worst team in the league. We'll get to them. So realistically, he could, in theory, only miss 4 games between now and February 1 if he were to miss some time. And so I think they're the best team they're the best team in college basketball that I've seen with him. They have, in my opinion, the best resume in college basketball. You just look at these wins. Iowa State on a neutral. Their only loss of the season is to Auburn. Houston on a neutral. North Carolina, they destroyed in Maui. Memphis, they destroyed in Maui. Ohio State, they beat by 38 points. Purdue, they beat by 18 in a game that wasn't that close, and they're 3-0 in SEC play. And I actually think they're kind of built to actually have success without him. Now, they're not the same team without him, but remember, veteran fifth-year senior Dylan Cardwell is his backup. Now that kid's a starter. That kid would be a starter at 99% of college basketball teams. You have Dylan Cardwell. You have Chad Baker-Mazara. You have Tahad Pettiford. This is a team that I think big picture can withstand the injury of Janai Broome. I'm willing to change. I'm willing to alter these rankings depending on what Auburn looks like without him. But as of right now, as of this second, I have to put Auburn at number 1. And again, we will see what happens without him, but I'm not going to knock them just because they're missing this kid, especially because we know he's not out for the year. The schedule kind of breaks relatively nicely with him out of the lineup. So I have Auburn at number 1. Number 2, I listed them on Sunday night's Aaron Torres Pod as the most underappreciated, under-talked about team in all of college basketball right now. It's the Alabama Crimson Tide, okay? And so Alabama, to me, is a fascinating team. And we talked about it on Sunday's show, but it's kind of crazy, right? Because you think about the SEC. Tennessee was number 1 last week. Auburn is number 1 this week. This is in the national AP poll. Kentucky is one of the best stories in college basketball. Arkansas is one of the biggest disappointments, but there's no shortage of conversations in the SEC. The thing about Alabama, we thought they were going to be good. They are good. And so because of it, it's almost like they're just kind of getting lost in the shuffle. Oh, we knew they were going to be good. Them beating up people shouldn't be a surprise, but they are dominating and destroying everybody. Alabama has not lost a game since Thanksgiving week, okay? They have a great resume like Auburn. You just look at the wins that they have. Illinois on a neutral when Illinois was at full strength. Illinois is a very good team. Houston on a neutral. They are obviously 3-0 in SEC play. And I think the thing with Alabama, they're really starting, in my opinion, to figure things out as far as the lineup and as far as things, how pieces fit in all of that, okay? Remember, Mark Sears was struggling at the beginning of the year. Well, guess what? 5 straight games with 20-plus points for that kid. Chris Youngblood is back from injury. And the thing that I keep thinking about with Alabama is besides the great wins, besides the dominance, besides 3-0, by the way, I didn't even mention they beat a top 10 Texas A&M team on the road Saturday night in College Station. On top of them, they are just such an impressive team. And I think because a lot of the guys on the team are young, there's actually another level for them to get to. Darian Reed, I think is a pro maybe this year, but he's still young. Aiden Sherrill is young. Jaron Stevenson is still trying to figure things out. And I say that in a positive way as his best basketball is still ahead. You look at this team, the way they play, their size, but their skill. Listen, I know they're flying under the radar. I still think this team has as good of a chance as anybody in college basketball to get to San Antonio for the Final Four and to potentially win a national championship. It would obviously be the first one in school history. I got Alabama at number 2. Drop your questions in the comments section. We'll get to some of them after. I want to get to comments. I want this, by the way, to be a little bit of a looser show. I don't want to just yell and scream for a half an hour. So let's keep it going. Number 3, a little bit controversial. I'm actually going with the Florida Gators, okay? And so here's the thing, right? If I say, Florida at number 3, I know what the immediate response is. Well, what about Kentucky? Kentucky beat Florida at Rupp-Arena. Torres, did you not watch that game? Well, here's the thing. I don't think we can go solely on just who won and who lost every single game, because if that were the case, where does Georgia? Would Georgia be ahead of Kentucky? Georgia beat Kentucky. Should Georgia be at number 3, at number 4, whatever? So again, if you're only looking for win-loss records and you have to base your rankings based solely on who is atop the standings, then just go look at the standings. But when I look at Florida, listen, one thing about Torres, you got to admit, I'm not afraid to admit when I'm wrong. And I said like 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago going into that Kentucky game, I said, Florida's got a lot of nice wins in the out-of-conference, but how good is Florida really? Are they that good? Should we really believe in them? Yeah, they're that good. And I actually think they're again, I said Alabama, I said it with Auburn. They have as good a chance as anybody to get to the Final Four. 3 veteran guards, Walter Clayton, Will Richard, Elijah Martin. They combine to average about 45 points per game. Here's the thing, though, and I really noticed this in the Arkansas game the other day, is that they have skilled big guys in Thomas Hawk and Alex Condon. But what's crazy about those guys, they're these skinny, athletic kids that shoot a lot of threes, and you'd sit there and say, well, they're soft in the paint. No, Florida is the number 1 offensive rebounding team in the SEC, and they don't look like a bunch of brute physical. They don't look like the 1994 New York Knicks, but they kind of play like them. Xavier McDaniel, Anthony Mason, like that's who they play like. It's kind of crazy. And if you watch that Arkansas game, Arkansas was playing them tough. They just couldn't get a rebound on the defensive end, and that is a credit to Florida. And so I look at Florida, they shoot the three ball well, 3 veteran guards, those 2 big guys that can stretch the floor. Ruben Chinyelu down low has been awesome. I give Todd Golden credit, man. When he took this job, you can go through the archives. I did not believe in Todd Golden. I had my questions. I got to give credit where it's due. I have Florida at number 3. Number 4, I know you've been waiting, Big Blue Nation. I do have Kentucky at number 4. And we've talked a lot about Kentucky. I don't need to go through every single thing with them and every single moment in time. We've talked a lot about them. But listen, I think we did see the best version of Kentucky basketball on Saturday night at Mississippi State. And what really stood out to me about that game for Kentucky is exactly what I said after the game. I said, look, at the end of the day, what's kind of crazy about Kentucky is that outside of Lamont Butler, I don't totally know what I'm getting from every single guy, every single night on that roster. But what's also true is that on any given night, anybody can step up at any time as well. Saturday, it was Jackson Robinson, 27 points, 7 3-pointers. It was Ansley Almanor, 3 3-pointers late in the game that gave Kentucky the lead that they never gave back. And so you look at this Kentucky team, they have so much depth, so many guys that can beat you, so many different guys that can contribute on any given night. And I think that while I have been sort of negative after losses like the Georgia game, like why did nobody else show up? I think the opposite is true as well. You don't need everybody to be great. Like there are a lot of teams that if one player doesn't play well, it's lights out, right? Like God forbid, and I'm not trying to be negative here, but like we've seen like if Sakai Ziegler hurt his ankle, if he twisted his ankle and he was out for a week, like I don't know who Tennessee would be. Kentucky, it feels like there are 7-8 guys that can get you 20 on any given night. The negative is sometimes when the team goes cold, everybody goes cold. 6 of 25 shooting from 3 against Georgia. But listen, I think this team is getting more comfortable with each other. They're getting more comfortable on the road. I got to give so much credit to that win over Mississippi State on the road because, listen, it's one thing to do it at Rupp against Florida. It's one thing to do it on a neutral. To go into a crazy, crazy, crazy arena in Stark Vegas on Saturday night, Kentucky deserves credit. Kentucky gets that win. And to me, just like everybody else on this list so far, they can be in San Antonio. They have so much talent. Cannot wait, Sat. I know, by the way, they got a game this week against Texas A&M at home. That's a big one. Can't wait for Saturday when they host Alabama. Let's get to number 5. This, to me, is really where the top tier kind of cuts off at probably the 5th team. I believe there's a clear top 5. It is the Tennessee Volunteers. By the way, speaks to how good and how deep this league is. When the 5th best team in the league was the number 1 ranked team in college basketball a season ago, okay? Or a week ago, excuse me. And so that speaks to how deep this league is. Tennessee obviously has some incredible wins. I think, by the way, by the end of the year, their win at Illinois, I think that's going to go down as maybe the best win in college basketball or one of the best wins in college basketball all season. Illinois is a great team. They're getting better every week. They're a little bit banged up right now. Their best player, Kasparis Yakashonis, is not playing. And so the fact that Tennessee went into Champaign, beat them when Illinois was 100% healthy, that speaks to me about just how good this team is, just what they are capable of. In terms of the positives, we know what they are. I just mentioned it. Sky Ziegler, to me, is playing like an All-American. Even outside of individual players, they're the Rick Barnes elite defense that they have been in years past. Number 1 in the country in three-point field goal percentage. Number 3 in the country in field goal percentage defense, number 2 in the country in points allowed. So when you're top 3 in field goal percentage defense, 3-point percentage defense, and scoring allowed, that speaks to just how good your team is. Now, I do think the big picture question is, do they have enough scoring outside of Chaz Lanier? Chaz Lanier has struggled the last 2 games, 10 points against Texas the other night, 10 points against Florida on the road. Do they have that second guy? Zakai Ziegler can have his moments, but I don't know that that's a guy that can get you 26 on a night when Chaz Lanier is off. We saw after the game, by the way, Rick Barnes with that incredible comment about, listen, I pulled him aside. I said, we're paying you big money. It's time for you to go deliver. So I love that from Rick Barnes, but I just bring it up to say I like Tennessee. Curious if they have that second guy, but to me, they're still, listen, legit Final Four contender, legit get to San Antonio type team. And as I said, number 1 in the country a week ago shows you just how deep this league is. Let's get to number 6. I think you get to a few different teams here. I'm going to go with the Ole Miss Rebels, though. Okay, so Ole Miss, Chris Beard, fascinating team in this ranking, okay? They, by the way, along with Alabama and along with Auburn, are the only teams that are 3-0 through 3 games in SEC play. And to me, this was a team that was kind of on the fringe of the bubble a year ago. The biggest difference, actually, you know what it is? It's easy to forget, but Mark Adams was Chris Beard's right-hand man for the best years, the best days at Texas Tech, okay? When Chris Beard left Texas Tech, Mark Adams stayed behind, coached there 2 years, got fired a year ago. Well, he's back at Ole Miss with Chris Beard, and the defense has been so much better this season. They are currently, as of right now, in the top 40 nationally in all of those stats that I just gave you: field goal percentage defense, 3-point defense, points allowed. And so you add in those defensive numbers along with offense from all of the guys that they had, all the guys that they brought in. And I think this is definitely the most balanced team that Chris Beard has had. I can't say it's the most balanced team he's had at Ole Miss. This is year 2, but they're playing much better defense. I think the thing with them, Beard did a good job. He inherited a couple really good players, Matthew Morrell, Jamin Brakefield, and he's retained them, one, but kept some nice pieces around them. So you have, Sean Padula comes in, has been playing really well. Jalen Murray was there last year, so you can't really say he's a new piece, but Malik Dia is starting to emerge, played at Belmont last year. Mikhail Brown-Jones has been awesome in some of their biggest games. I really like this Ole Miss team. They're probably the quietest 3-0 SEC team that we've had in some time, but they are 3-0. Schedule gets much tougher at Alabama, at Mississippi State. It is going to be fun to watch this team over the next couple weeks. Let's get to number 7. And in my opinion, the number 7 team in the SEC right now, team that lost on Saturday to the Kentucky Wildcats, Mississippi State. Shows you how deep this league is. Mississippi State is 14-2 right now, had not lost a game since November, and I have them at number 7 in this poll. Interesting team. One, as you saw on Saturday night, the offense is so much better than it has been in years past. Josh Hubbard is really good. I think the Claudell Harris kid who transferred in from Boston College, I think to me, he's probably the X factor as far as the difference in what makes this team different from years past for Mississippi State. You look at what he's done, about 12 points per game. As I mentioned, he had a great game against Kentucky, 13 points. He's had double figures in all 3 SEC games this season. Played at Boston College a year ago. He's just that second scorer that they needed, like the size of Cam Matthews on the wing, like the size of RJ Melendez on the wing. And again, this is just a team. They're going to fall under the radar because there's so many big brands in the SEC. But you look at who this team is. You look at, by the way, who they've beaten. SMU's really good. Pitt in the ACC is really good. They beat Memphis at Memphis. So this is a team that's a little bit under the radar right now, but I am here to promise you they are better than a lot of people realize. And I think a lot of people realize just how good they are when they played and beat Kentucky the other day. Really quickly, let's keep it going at number 8. By the way, after 8, Matt, we got to shout out our people at Collie Post, but let's get to number 8 first. This is the team that nobody's talking about in the SEC right now. It is Dennis Gates' Missouri Tigers, okay? Missouri, it's easy to forget this. Does anyone besides me remember last year, Missouri winless in the SEC? Winless in the SEC. Well, guess what? Right now, they are 13-3. They're only 3 losses. This speaks to how good this league is. And I know I keep saying it, but it's worth noting. Only 3 losses. At Memphis on opening night, Illinois on a neutral, Auburn at home. Those are the only 3 losses. All 3 teams are legit top 25 teams, going to make the NCAA tournament unless something weird happens at Memphis, because something weird happens at Memphis every year. But Missouri is legit. Love their guards. Tamar Bates, really talented, 4th-year guy. Veteran guy, started his career at Indiana. Like the way that he's kind of matured and grown up. Like some of the portal additions. Mark Mitchell's their leading scorer, originally from St. Louis, played at Duke. He's from Kansas City. I'm sorry. I think I said St. Louis. I like Tony Perkins. He's not putting up huge stats, but kind of that veteran guard they needed. Only concern with Missouri, they don't have a ton of size. They're not a great rebounding team. I think we have seen that impact them in certain games, most notably, obviously, would be against Auburn, although even against Auburn, they kind of held their own in the paint. Janai Broom, who played in that game, was good, quote unquote, only had 7 rebounds, kept mostly everybody at Auburn off the glass. So with Missouri, I think the size could be a question mark against the Alabamas, against the Tennessee, some of the bigger teams, but we got to give credit where they're due because to me, Missouri is really good. All right, before we get to the back half of the SEC, and there are certainly some notable teams that we have not gotten to yet, very quickly, do want to thank our partners, our friends. I want to thank Collie Puffs and ColliePuffs.com. All right, so it is now January. We have told you about Collie Puffs since the start of football season, but with the new year comes New Year's resolutions. You want to eat healthier. You want to maybe have a little bit less alcohol. As I said, I made it to dry January till about the 3rd before I maybe broke the rules a little bit, but I'm working. Perfect. I'm not perfect. I'm doing my best, okay? The point I'm trying to make, you want to be healthy. You want to be smart about what you put in your body, and that's where Collie Puffs comes in, okay? Collie Puffs is the new age health food snack. It is delicious but healthy. The great part is, I love the story. Family-owned company, not far from where I live. Joey, like me, like you, is a football fan. He was sitting on the couch trying to figure out, okay, I need a snack. My kids need something for me to send them to a school, but it needs to be something healthy, but also something that's good enough for them to eat. And that's where Collie Puffs comes in. Baked, not fried, avocado oil, no grease. But here's the cool part. They are freaking delicious. They're delicious. They're delicious. They're the healthy alternative to all the crap in your grocery aisle. And at this point, you don't need me to tell you any more about them, but I'm going to anyway. And it is time for you to try them for yourselves. For more information to try them for yourself, visit ColliePuffs.com. That's CAULIPUFFS.com, ColliePuffs.com. They are also available on Amazon.com. All you got to do, go to Amazon. You already have a cart open. You already have stuff in that cart. You already have toys. You already have gifts. You already have this. You already have that. Well, guess what? That is where you could try Collie Puffs as well. Again, ColliePuffs.com. That's CAULIPUFFS.com. ColliePuffs.com. We appreciate their support of the Aaron Torres Pod. And again, try them for yourself at ColliePuffs.com. All right, let's keep the SEC Power Rankings going here. It is a Monday night. We're trying to do something different, trying to have a little bit of fun here. Drop your comments in the comment section. Curious to hear what you guys think about how awful my rankings are, all of that good stuff. And let's go ahead and get to the number 9 team in the SEC, which again speaks to just how deep this league is. It is the Texas A&M Aggies. And I know people are going to say, Torres, Texas A&M is ranked number 11 in the AP poll. How could you have them ranked so low in the SEC poll? 1, this league is really good. 2, they're, the 9th best team in the SEC, that might be like a 6 seed in the NCAA tournament, okay? And so when I look at A&M, I really like A&M. I think the key with them, Wade Taylor's a little bit banged up, but Zurich Phelps, in my opinion, has stepped up. They needed a second scorer. They got that second scorer in Zurich Phelps, okay? So I give A&M credit. Here's my concern. They are 2-1 in the SEC. First of all, the out-of-conference schedule, they beat some good teams. I don't know that they beat a bunch of great teams. The best win was obviously that game against Purdue in Indianapolis. That was a great win. They deserve all the credit for that. But they beat a decent Ohio State team. They lost to Oregon. The Creighton Rutgers teams that they beat are not very good. And then early in SEC play, I think it's easy to sit there and say, well, they're 2-1, this and that. Well, let's remember, first of all, Texas is good. I don't think Texas is great. They were trailing by 18 points against Oklahoma. And so I don't know that they're like the greatest team that has ever existed. And then, of course, they lost to Alabama. I like them. The issues that they had last year, though, they didn't shoot the 3-ball well. They missed a lot of foul shots. Well, guess what? They don't shoot the 3-ball well, miss a lot of foul shots. They're a team to me that, again, rebounding, toughness, physicality. They got the 2 scores now. They got the second scores now. I'm just not sure that they have enough shooting, enough whatever. And so to me, I like Texas A&M. I don't love them. Let's get to number 10. This is one that's tough for me. I'm still trying to wrap my little noodle around the number 10 team in these rankings. It is the Georgia Bulldogs. So Georgia, to me, do I have Georgia at number 10, Matt? Okay, I just want to make sure. I want to make sure I got my own rankings right. Good job, Torres. Number 10 is the Georgia Bulldogs. Georgia's tough because I did not have them very high, and I just simply don't trust Mike White. And so it's tough for me because they have gotten off to hot starts before. I went back and looked it up to make sure I wasn't going crazy. But last year, Georgia started 12-3, okay? Well, they ended the SEC tournament at 17-16 before making the NIT. So it's hard for me to get too excited about this team. Even though, to their credit, they are taking care of business. They're 2-1 in the SEC. They have that great win over Kentucky. They beat Oklahoma the other day. And listen, there's a lot of reason for excitement if you're a Georgia fan. It's been a long time since Georgia was 14-2, but again, they were 13-3 last year. And you look at the wins, I don't think they're great. Listen, they have dating back to the out-of-conference portion of the slate. I mean, what is their best win in the out-of-conference? A bad Notre Dame team, a bad, Georgia Tech team. St. John's, I guess, in the Bahamas is probably the best win. But outside of that Oklahoma team is tumbling. We'll get to them in a minute. The Kentucky win is great. I just don't know, as league play goes on, is this a team that we can trust? We're going to find out pretty quick because the next two are at Tennessee versus Auburn at home. Obviously, that Auburn game will be without Jani Broome. But when I look at this team, the positives, I do give credit. Some of the big guys, Asa Newell, I knew he was good. I didn't think he'd be this good, but he is playing like a freshman All-American. This is a great freshman class of college basketball. And so want to go ahead and give him credit. But I guess I do just wonder, is this sustainable over the course of time? We're going to find out because, as I said, at Tennessee, Auburn this week, then at Arkansas. So we're going to find out pretty quickly just how good this team is. Like Georgia, not sure that I love them. Number 11, interesting team, Texas Longhorns. So Texas, there's some positives, there's some negatives. The positives, they got some dudes, man. If you watch that Texas-Tennessee game on Saturday, they got some dudes. Like I said this on the Aaron Torres Pod on Sunday night, it is going to be hard for me. I hear all this stuff about Dylan Harper this, Ace Bailey that, okay? If you want to argue Cooper Flagg is the best freshman in college basketball, I'm not going to fight with you. But what I would also say is that if that's what you want to argue, that's fine. I am having a hard time seeing how Trey Johnson, Texas's freshman, should not and is not a top 3 pick in this draft. I love Ace Bailey, love Dylan Harper. It's hard for me to see that Trey Johnson is not a guy that is in consideration for a top 3 pick. This kid, as a freshman in the SEC, is averaging 18 points per game. He is doing it, by the way, on 41% three-point shooting. I mean, this kid is a freaking stud. Okay, actually 19 points per game. I take that back, on 41% three-point shooting. Jordan Pope was one of my favorite players in the portal. Arthur Kaluma's playing well, transfer from Kansas State. I like the pieces, and it's tough for me to gauge with Texas because if you look at their season, really no bad losses. They're 5 losses overall. They are 0-3 in SEC play, but they're 5 losses overall. Ohio State on opening night. Okay, that was the first week in November. That was a long time ago. UConn's a pretty good team. Then in SEC play, they lost at A&M, Tennessee at home, Auburn at home, and they played Auburn really tough. And so this is a team that, listen, I could see them, they're 0-3. I could see them finishing 9-9 in SEC play. I could see them going 9-6 over the final couple weeks, like finishing as the 7th best team. I think they're a tournament team. They are a very talented team. I'm not as worried about Texas as everybody else. Interesting one coming up this week. They play at Oklahoma. Pretty much a must-win game for both teams who are both 0-3 in the SEC. Speaking of 0-3 in the SEC, the most famous winless team in college basketball at number 12, I'm going to go the Arkansas Razorbacks, okay? And I think you could justify putting them lower. I'm not there yet, but it kind of speaks to where we are with Arkansas that I have them at number 12. Truth of the matter is that, look, they got destroyed by Tennessee, whatever. The Ole Miss game just fell apart late. They were in it early, and then they just fell apart. And then, of course, against Florida, they were in it. DJ Wagner's dunk cuts it to 3 with about 6 minutes to go, and they can't get the job done. So we've talked about, we've diagnosed, we've overdiagnosed, we've re-diagnosed these Arkansas Razorbacks. I don't know what else there is to add at this point. The good news is, if you want to call it good news, you look at that Florida game. They lose by 8. They missed 11 foul shots in the game. They missed a bunch of layups. And so they're not that far off. And here's the crazy thing about Arkansas. If they could just get decent play from Nelly Davis, they would be fine. I think they've been a better team since Jonas Adu got healthy, even though the stats don't back it up. Adu Thiero is playing at All-American level. DJ Wagner, by the way, let's give the kid a little credit. Follows Cal from Kentucky. He is playing really, really, really well. He is kind of the only shining light in an otherwise quickly forgettable season for Arkansas. Listen, we know what's at stake. This week at LSU, at Missouri, I think you got to win them both. I'm not quite ready to throw the towel in on the season yet. I understand people from other fan bases kind of having their fun with Kentucky right now. I get it. That is part of having John Calipari as your coach. I'll also say they're 0-3. All three losses are to top 25 teams. 2 of the 3 are to teams that are in the top 5 right now. So that shows you just how good this league is. But at some point, nobody cares. You got to win some games that matter. The good news, if you're Arkansas, we talked about it on Sunday's pod. They are 1-5 in quad 1. That's not the good news. The good news is, though, they have not lost in quad 2, quad 3, quad 4. So they don't have a lot of great wins, but they have 0 bad losses. You can't take a bad loss starting this week against LSU. And then from there, we'll see what happens. You just got to take it one game at a time. If you're Arkansas, they come in at number 12. Number 13. Don't know if this will be deemed controversial or not, but let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the Oklahoma Sooners. So why I believe it could be deemed controversial is because last week they were ranked in the top 20. And a lot of you are going to sit there and say, Torres, how can you have a team that was in the top 20 a week ago at number 14 or number 13 in your SEC power rankings? And it's pretty simple. Not only do I not believe in them, they're a lot like I just said about Georgia. Remember I said Georgia last year started 13-3. They finished 17-16. Well, guess what? Last year, Oklahoma started 11-2. They finished 20-12. So I'm not great at math, but that's 9-10 over the final 2 months of the season once league play got started. I like Porter Moser, but it's not really working. You look at the resume, and when I say it's not working big picture overall, but you look at the resume, think about this. Even the battle for Atlantis, they won it. It doesn't feel as good as maybe it did at the time. You beat a Louisville team that had just lost their best big man a game before. Arizona was not playing well at the time, although they're playing better. You beat Providence when Providence was banged up. So it's like there's not a lot there. The Michigan win was great, but I do worry about this team now that they're in league play. And I'll also add, best player is a freshman point guard that reclassified. That worries me, even though Jeremiah Fears has been awesome. I got Oklahoma at number 13. Quick water break for Torres. Number 14, producer Matt, go ahead, roll it. Number 14 in the AT power rankings, Vanderbilt Commodores. I'll start to be quick here. We'll get to some questions. Producer Matt, if there's anything interesting in the comment section, feel free to drop it. Vanderbilt, listen, great story right now. I'm not sold that they're a great team. So they started in the out of conference. They started at 12-1 out of the conference. Okay. 12-1 out of the conference. The only loss was to Drake. They didn't really have very many great wins, though. Now they're in league play. They did beat LSU, but have lost back-to-back games. Mississippi State was in control against them. Then they got smoked at Missouri the other day. Listen, I like Byington, the new head coach. I think they're a team. Listen, they're kind of, you want the honest analysis? They're kind of the opposite of what I think Arkansas is right now. They're really well coached. I just don't think they're very good. I mean, their best player is probably A.J. Hoggard, who wasn't even very good at Michigan State in previous years. Tyler Nickel has had his moments, but I don't think there's much there. I think Mark Byington is doing what he can. I think the NIL setup is actually pretty good. I think this guy's an improvement over Jerry Stackhouse, who, of course, was the head coach last year. Like Vandy, don't love him. We'll get to the final 2 here really quick. 15 is the LSU Tigers. I'll be brief. I like Matt McMahon. He's been on this pod before. Good guy. It's just not really working at LSU right now. You look at first of all, the last 2 years of him. This is now year 3 for him at LSU. Year 1, 14-19. Last year, 17-16. 14th in the league, 7th in the league a year ago. 0 NCAA tournaments. And you got to remember, the guy that he replaced, Will Wade, was really freaking good. We can make fun of Will Wade. We could criticize Will Wade. Will Wade, his last year made the NCAA tournament, and in 2019 won the SEC. And so to me, you look at LSU right now, I just think the fan base is disengaged. I think the fan base is disengaged. It's hard for me to find wins on this schedule, although I will say with Arkansas coming to town this week, that's as good of a chance as anybody. But listen, I don't know how to say this delicately. I don't know how to say this delicately about LSU. I want to give them credit for playing well in the out-of-conference because LSU in the out-of-conference was actually pretty good. Everybody in the SEC was pretty good. They were 11-2 outside the league. Again, this is the part where it's hard to be delicate. I don't know that they have enough guys. I mean, to me, it feels like, honestly, they're bringing a knife to a gunfight. I just don't know that they have enough difference makers, enough playmakers. Cam Carter, who transferred from Kansas State, is really good. Once you get past him, I think there's quite a few question marks. So LSU is number 15. Number 16 is South Carolina. Lamont Paris did an awesome job last year making the NCAA tournament. This year, though, again, I don't know that he has enough there. They lost Michi Johnson off last year's team. They were the only team that wasn't great out of conference. They finished 10-3 in the out of conference portion of the slate, lost at Indiana, lost to Xavier, lost to North Florida early in the season. Did pick up a nice win against Clemson, their in-state rival, though. South Carolina's number 16. I think they are probably the worst team. So really quickly, top 5 was Auburn, Alabama, Florida, Kentucky, Tennessee. Then Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Missouri, Texas A&M, Georgia. Final 6 were Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Vandy, LSU, South Carolina. Ones that I'm willing to think that I might have been wrong on. I think there could be a scenario where A&M ends up higher, and I think Texas is actually better, even though based on where we are right now, they probably shouldn't be any higher than they are. Really quickly, producer Matt, do we have any questions, any interesting comments from the chat? We'll get to 1 or 2, and then we'll go ahead and get out of here. Should have done a better job promoting this, by the way. Vandy worse than Arkansas? I don't know. Vandy is worse than Arkansas, but what did I say? Arkansas doesn't look very well coached right now. I mean, Arkansas, talent-wise, probably a top 5, top 6 roster in the league. So it's just a question whether they put it together. I'm not ready to give up yet. I've said it on the show. Cal won 7 of his final 8 in league play last year. They were a great team after DJ Wagner came back from injury. Didn't have success in the SEC tournament, the NCAA tournament, but it's hard for me to give up on them yet because the talent is there. It's just whether they figure it out or not. Anything else before we get out of here? We beat Florida 2. We smacked them around. UK Tide says about Kentucky. Listen, I agree. I mean, the thing is, at some point, you got like you can't just rank teams based on who won and who lost, because again, if that were the case, then I'd have to put Georgia ahead of Kentucky. I don't think Georgia's a better team than Kentucky. I think the night they played, they were better than Kentucky. I don't think they're a better team. So I'll tell you what, do think it is time for me to get out of here. Kind of a lighter show today. Wanted to have a little bit of more fun. Didn't do a good job promoting this, so we'll make sure that we get the word out a little bit earlier next week, because I do think this has a chance to cause some debate and discussion, and I really do appreciate everybody tuning in. Do me a quick favor, though. If you are not subscribed to the Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel, please make sure to do so. Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Music, wherever you get your podcast, please make sure to subscribe. Also, make sure to rate and review the show. Go ahead, give us a quick 5 stars. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, all that good stuff. Make sure you're following on social media, Aaron_Torres on Twitter, Aaron Torres Pod on Instagram, Aaron Torres Podcast Questions @gmail.com. Final reminder, and we will get some details out in the coming days, but we are running a GoFundMe for the Pasadena Humane Society. The link, if you're listening on pod, will be in the show description. So make sure to check it out there. Appreciate everybody's support. If $5, $10, whatever you have would go a long way. Time for me to get out of here. Time for me to go. Appreciate everybody's support. Shout out to Torrent Craig. Shout out to Rachel, who hates my voice. Shout out to JJ Reddick, who, as I said, I like to poke at him, but he's had a tough couple weeks here in Los Angeles as well. I'll be back Tuesday. We'll probably do a new episode of the Aaron Torres Pod. Appreciate everybody's support.